Thank you. If you could, everybody have their seats. Where's Matt? You get Steve and Laura? You got the table? All right. Matt, Angie, right over here. Yeah, okay, yeah. Shh. Okay, that's great. That was quick. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our event, an exciting event that we're doing with Newsday and Next Long Island. And we really appreciate you all coming here this morning. A couple of preliminary things to go through, including some introductions. Of course, I always start with my dear friend and the chairman of the LIA from the First Investors of Long Island, Larry Wallman. Larry, thank you very much. Also, I want to thank all the LIA board members that are here, including Dan Deegan from Fercelli, who runs our Young Professionals Committee, which is what this morning's event really is all about. So, Dan, thank you for your leadership on that committee. We have with us our two county executives. Can't see, but Laura Curran is here. Laura. There's Laura. Very good. And Suffolk County Executive Steve Bellone. Steve, thanks so much. Not sure if they're here yet. Our two district attorneys, Madeline and Tim, not here yet. Madeline Singus and Tim Sini. Lisa Santaramo representing Governor Cuomo. Lisa, thank you for coming. We have a lot of other elected officials here. And with no disrespect, I can't name them all, but I'm going to ask our state senators and state assembly folks to stand up and be recognized. Thank you so much. We have a half dozen town supervisors and a half dozen village mayors. I would like to ask them all to stand up. Thank you. And we have numerous county legislators from both Nassau and Suffolk County, including the Deputy Presiding Officer of Suffolk County, Dwayne Gregory. I'd ask them to rise and be acknowledged. Thank you so much. I can't pass an opportunity with this size crowd to highlight several items that are important. First and foremost, I want to thank Governor Cuomo and our state Senate and Assembly delegation for approving the LIA's #1 priority this year, and that's the property tax cap. Thank you, and let's give them a round of applause. But there are three other issues that are remaining out there between now and the end of session that are critical to Long Island that we need everybody's support for. First and foremost, as soon as next week, we need the state to approve the Northeast Supply Enhancement Project. It's a critical natural gas pipeline that's needed to get big projects done on Long Island. It's critical to our region, would have worse immediate impacts for our region if it's not approved than the whole Amazon debacle. So we need your support on the NESE project. You may have been reading about, there's legislation kicking around in Albany establishing a prevailing wage, and it's easy to fight and oppose things. It's much more difficult to compromise and cut a deal. And the LIA, with our friends from the ABLI and the Long Island Builders Institute, have been working with our brothers and sisters in labor to work out a compromise that's fair for them, but that will not stifle growth. A couple of meetings this week, a couple of meetings next week. We're going to continue to try to work together and hammer something out, and I appreciate the willingness to do that. And then the last item that you're going to be reading about a lot more over the next couple of months. It's one of the most exciting projects that could happen for our region in a long time. It's a project at Brookhaven National Laboratory. It's called an electron ion collider. Don't ask me to explain what it is. That's why I went to law school and not to physics and to become an engineer. But we're asking the state for a significant multi-million-dollar investment that would leverage a multi-billion-dollar investment by the federal government. And we're in competition with the state of Virginia for this project, and it's something that we're going to really be advocating for over the next couple of months, be really critical to our efforts to establish the research corridor here on Long Island. So stay tuned for more information on that. And now it gives me great pleasure to talk about our co-host for this event today with Newsday and Next Long Island. Newsday has been a member of the LIA since 1946, almost 75 years. That's worthy of a clap and applause right there. People forget, Newsday is not just Long Island's hometown main newspaper, but they're also a very significant business, one of the largest employers on Long Island. And so their participation, their publisher, has been on our board for decades. Their new owner, Pat Dolan, is incredible. Long Island is so fortunate that he is now the new owner of that. And we have the publisher of Newsday, dear friend Debbie Krennick, who is only the second woman to be a publisher of Newsday after the very first owner of Newsday. So let's give a big welcome to the publisher of Newsday, Debbie Krennick.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kevin, so much for hosting this breakfast and for all of the support that you've given nextLI. And wow, what a crowd. Thank you all so much for coming. We are so honored that you're here to participate in this conversation, very important conversation about the future of Long Island. I also want to thank the nextLI Community Advisory Board members who have put in much of their time to help give us invaluable insights as we move this project forward. nextLI was born a year ago this April. It's funded by a 3-year grant from the Rash Foundation to continue the work for the Long Island Index. We hope that the deep data that nextLI generates will help all of you Long Island leaders and residents address our many challenges on the island. In addition, we want the nextLI website to be a forum where everyone can come together to talk about these issues, and we believe everyone on Long Island needs a voice to do that. We feel like we have a goal of reaching all, and that if we can have data and informed consensus, then we can really move a path forward. nextLI is very much like Newsday. Our mission has been to give voice to Long Islanders, and as Kevin said, we've been covering Long Island for 78 years, and we're really committed to this region. We feel like the partnership of nextLI and all of you guys in the room, we can really move the conversation forward and chart a great path for Long Island, which all of you have been doing. And everyone here is so passionate about our island and the place that we love. And so we're looking forward and very excited to the next conversation. Now I want to turn this over to my good friend and colleague, Rita Cioli. She's the editor of the Newsday and AM New York opinion pages and director of nextLI.
Let me repeat what Debbie said. We are really thrilled and honored. This means so much to have all of you here to help us launch our new project. So I'm going to put some meat on the bone because I'm sure you're wondering what the heck is Newsday up to now. So here we are. We're going to tell you. The booklet you have on your seat is the publication of the nextLI's first survey, but it's just a start. It's not the end of it. We are continuing the Long Island Index initiative of providing Long Island and this region with very valuable research. It's original research, the survey we commissioned, which you will be hearing all about today, as well as the aggregation of all the public data about Long Island. The Rash Foundation did it. We're taking it over. We're now on our website. It's dynamic, it's visualized, and we're absolutely able to automate all of this government data about statistics for Long Island. That's a very important thing for the region to have. But let me tell you what we're really excited about, what we want to do next, and that's to make all of this research accessible to everyone. The breakfast is the first step, obviously. The PDF of this booklet that you have is on our website that can be downloaded. And this weekend, a 16-page newsprint version of it will be delivered to all 200,000 home subscribers. By the end of the month, this will go to 620,000 of Long Island's households through our distribution network. So every household on Long Island is going to get these results. That's reaching 3 million people, and that's how we want to start the conversation. Here's the data. What are we going to do about the challenges? How do we react to these views? And to do that, we're asking you to go to our website, and we're asking Long Islanders come and have a conversation. So I would describe nextLI as a town square, kind of a digital town square. The people who will come here to participate in this conversation will have the data. They will have their own experiences, quantitative, qualitative. They will be able to share essays and videos about their experiences. New voices will be amplified, and many, many more voices will be heard. Now you say, how is that really going to work? Well, the forums will be modified. Comments, there are rules. Comments have to be respectful. They have to be on point. We want to create dialogues. We want people to understand, to see different points of view, and see if we could reach a consensus on some of the critical issues facing the region. One of the findings in our survey is how engaged Long Island young people are in their civic community. I know I'm taking away some of Amy's thunder here in revealing that, but it's more than the nationwide. So let's tap into that. And I'm the editorial page editor, so of course I have weird dreams. One of them is flash mobs of millennials coming to zoning meetings, demanding that housing be changed and they could actually find a place to live, and they could afford to do that. So, you know, it's been done before. You know, those basements in Levittown didn't get done without people standing outside and in Town Hall at Hempstead for days till the zoning was changed. It can be done, and we have a crisis in housing for our young people on Long Island. So I've already had many questions this morning. Why did you pick this group? Why didn't you just do everyone on Long Island? And we thought about that, but for years at Newsday, from the Roush Foundation, we all have these forums. We're always talking about, what about our young people? They're leaving. Are we going to become, is the first suburb going to become the grayest suburb in America because everyone else has left? And that's a real fear for the dynamism of our community. So we said, why don't we take it to them? Let's ask them, see what they want. After all, 18 to 34-year-olds are the largest population group in our 2 counties. 75% of them work here. 55% of them have never lived anywhere else. They are invested. This is their home, and they want to stay. And how are we going to make that happen for them? So it's time to give them the stage. After all, soon they will be taking over the reins of government, our businesses, and our institutions. Soon they're going to be making the decisions for the rest of us. So we might as well engage them and see what it is that they want. So I want to quickly say that this is nextLI. It's an initiative of Newsday, funded to get off the ground by the Roush Foundation, but it is an incredible team effort for Newsday. From the design of our website, from the design of these booklets, from the research, everyone at Newsday has had a role in that, and for that I am so grateful. We really came together as an organization, worked together as a team, and I'm really proud, and thank every one of my colleagues that are here for doing that. And so now I'm turning the mic over to Newsday's next generation. Amanda Facina is the project manager for nextLI, and she's the heart of this effort. It was Amanda who first suggested that we respond to the RFP that the Roush Foundation put out saying, take over the index. And she's skillfully directed this effort ever since. Here's Amanda.
Thanks, Rita. So as you've been hearing about, our team has been working hard this past year to build nextLI into the platform you've all been hearing about this morning. So we'd first like to take a minute to have each of the team members introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Coralie St. Louis, and I am the Outreach and Engagement Manager for nextLI. I am going to be spending a lot of time in the community and on our website, next.newsday.com, to help facilitate some of these conversations we want to have about the future. And I see a lot of familiar faces here, and I'm looking forward to getting acquainted with the rest of you because we have all this data that we want to make available to the rest of you and present to your organization in the future. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. I'm Kai. I'm the data journalist on the team. So I work on the website, I write the daily data posts, I work on data analysis, which means if you have data, I want it, so come talk to me. Cool. Thank you.
And our digital producer, Michael Cusinelli, he's back there helping run this whole show. So thanks, Mike. So during today's presentation, we invite you to submit questions by texting the word nextLI to the number 63566. There are more instructions on these cards at your seats. We're going to try to answer as many questions as possible live after Amy presents the findings today. Now, should the Wi-Fi totally fail us, fingers crossed it doesn't, but if it does, you can write your questions on these cards and we will come around to collect them. So we're excited to share the results of our inaugural survey today, the first comprehensive snapshot of Long Island's 18 to 34-year-olds. To conduct it, we selected YouGov, a global public opinion and data company used by nonprofits, media companies, and brands. We were impressed by YouGov's mix of traditional survey methods on a platform where our target age group could be reached. YouGov Managing Director Amy Emity is here today to share the findings. She has more than 2 decades of experience in the research sector, previously serving as Director of Market Research at Freddie Mac, where she conducted studies on housing trends, multicultural financial priorities, and foreclosure avoidance. She has managed various research ventures at YouGov on topics like advocacy and millennial behavior. Let's all welcome Amy today.
Good morning, everyone. I have to tell you, as a researcher, I love this stuff, and I can get totally geeked out on research results, but the fact that you all are here so early on a Friday morning to hear about research, it just warms my heart. So thank you. Thank you. So the beginning of any research presentation, we got to tell you what we did first. So what we did is we conducted over 1,800 online interviews with adults who live on Long Island or who used to live on Long Island. We did them all online because, of course, where do you find 18 to 34-year-olds? You find them online. When we break this down and we look across the 1,800 interviews we did, we had 1,354 people who live here on Long Island. We then added in an additional 302 interviews of people who used to live on Long Island but now live in the city. We did also capture some feedback from people who commute here for school or for work, but I'm going to tell you most of what we're going to talk about today focuses on the 1,354 people who live here full time. We're also going to cover at the end some of the results from the folks who used to live here and now live in the city. So we're going to start with a few of my favorite fun facts that came out of this. The first one Rita already alluded to. We've got over half of young adults on Long Island who have never lived anywhere else. And we've got over 80% who graduated from high school here on Long Island. That means these people have roots here. They've been here their entire lives. And while they've been here their entire lives, many of them have encountered some of the stereotypes in Long Island, whether that be traffic jams or accents, affluent big spending, aggressive parenting, playground for the Hamptonites. Can you all relate to this? Have you all experienced this? Now, of all these people who've been here on Long Island and they're living here, 85% of them, they are proud to be Long Islanders. They're proud to be from here. And they're telling us this is a really good place to raise children. What do young adults here on Long Island love about being here? Well, they love the outdoors. Is that better? All right. The outdoors, the access to shopping, and the education. Now, if we talk about this outdoor love for a minute, you all have Frisbees on your seats. Those are for outside. Let's not throw them in here, okay? But even with all of this love for Long Island and being proud to be from here, you know, life for young adults here on Long Island, it's not always easy. What don't people love about Long Island? Well, 64% are telling us it's the housing costs. And 50% are telling us that it's the overall affordability for being here on Long Island. We asked them what the biggest problems were on Long Island. And this was just an open-ended text box. They could write in whatever they wanted. And you're probably not surprised to see that taxes surface to the top, followed then by the cost of living and housing costs. All right, then we asked them, are you going to love it or are you going to leave it? And 23%, oh, I love Long Island. I'm never going anywhere. Never. 27%, however, were like, well, you know, if I could afford to, I would leave. Our Long Islanders, our young adults here, they're working hard. 70% of them are working full time, and 25% of them have a second job. Now, those second jobs, if people have already graduated from college and they've got that college degree under their belt, most of those second jobs are freelancing gigs. But for the people who have not graduated from college or who are currently in college, those second jobs, they're retail. They're working in restaurants, and it's apparent there's some aspiring actors or actresses here on Long Island. Now, despite the fact that they're all working hard, 52% of them are telling us that it is difficult to pay their monthly bills. Now, given all of this, many that we talked to told us that they know people who've left Long Island. 81% said that they know someone who's moved away from Long Island. Now, that statistic is not alarming to me. It's not surprising that people know folks who've moved away. The stat that causes me some pause is this one. 58% know someone who's moved away from Long Island because of the cost of living here. That one I thought was kind of alarming. Now, what does all of this mean? Well, for any of you out there who have children between the ages of 18 and 34, 1 in 3 of you likely has them living at home with you. Yeah? Because when we asked where do people live, 35%, the most common response we got from this age group was that they're living at home with their parents or with a relative. We have another third, 32%, telling us that they rent, and 3 out of 10 say that they own their home. Now, that 3 out of 10 home ownership rate here on Long Island, that's lagging behind the stat, the level nationwide. In a YouGov Economist poll that we did in April of this year, we asked this same age group, it was part of our poll, do you have a mortgage? Which obviously is a sign of home ownership. And 42% within this age group told us they have a mortgage. So obviously you can see the gap between the 42 nationwide and the 30% here on Long Island. 67% of the young Long Islanders are telling us that they plan to move away from Long Island to a place with more affordable housing. But 55% are telling us that they have plans to buy a home in the next 5 years. However, only 44% of that 55% are planning to do that here on Long Island. Now, our young adults on Long Island, they're highly educated. 8 in 10 either have a college degree or are currently working on one. But unfortunately, they're also highly in debt. We have 66% who either currently have a student loan or who have had one. And it's the impact of that debt that can be a little concerning. We have 55% of those who've had or had a student loan tell us that they have delayed buying a home or having children because of that debt. Now, we went looking for some statistics to see how does this compare nationwide. And we found some that NBC News had shared last year. And what they found in a poll was 34% of folks, of millennials, so in this age group, said that they had delayed buying a home because of debt, 16% delayed having children because of debt. Obviously, we've got a little bit more of a severe impact of those delayed life events here on Long Island. Now, when we talk about this and the difficulty of paying bills and the high housing costs, not all economic struggles are equal. We've got some disparities across some ethnic and racial segments here on Long Island. For instance, when you look at employment and those who work full-time, you have white and Hispanics who are much more likely to tell us that they're working full-time. But then look at the income. When you look at those making more than $100,000 a year, there's a definite disparity where whites are significantly more likely to be making over $100,000 a year. On the flip side, you look at those more likely to be making less than $50,000 a year, and it's the Hispanic, Black, and Asian populations. That question about difficulty paying bills, Hispanics, 65% of them, they were the most likely group to tell us they're having difficulty each month. But even with Hispanics at 65, you can see that it's not like the other numbers are low. We're at 49, 50, and 39%, respectively. When we talk about education levels, well, it's the whites and the Asians who are most likely to have that four-year degree, but it's the Blacks who are most likely to have that student loan. We've got Hispanics and Blacks lagging behind on home ownership, but you've got Blacks and Asians being the ones who are most likely to be living with parents or relatives. Of course, there's likely some cultural elements to those statistics as well, so keep that in mind. So just to kind of recap what we've gone over so far, right? We've got young adults on Long Island who have lived here most all of their lives, and they are proud to be here. They believe it's a great place to be, a great place to raise a family. They're educated, they're working hard. They've got student loan debt, and the high cost of living is making life here on Long Island difficult. Many have moved away because of that high cost of living, and we've got some economic disparities across segments of the population. So what does our future look like? What are the perceptions here? Well, we asked them whether or not they thought Long Island has enough jobs in the industries of the 21st century. And they're split. 48% were like, yes, we got this. And then 52 were like, well, maybe not. 3 in 10 told us that they've got friends or family members who have turned down well-paying jobs here on Long Island. And we've got some negative connotation here to Amazon having pulled out of Queens. More people are telling us it would have a negative impact on Long Island than a positive. Okay, now here we get into some of the fun stuff about public affairs and government and whether or not these folks are paying attention. 2/3 tell us that they are paying attention to what's happening around them. They're paying attention to what's going on in government and public affairs. Now, at YouGov, we did a study on advocacy. We released these results earlier this year. And we asked the same question on our study. And when we look at those results for the 18 to 34-year-olds across the nation, same statistic here, 59%. So we're skewing here on Long Island with more of the young adults paying attention to what's going on around them as compared to what we're seeing in the rest of the nation. Now, that 66% gets divided into 2 chunks. And 29% are telling us that they're paying attention most of the time. This is something that they do a lot, that they're really engaged. Now, when you look at that across the different segments, Hispanics are leading the way with 34%. We asked about their roles in the community and what kind of involvement they have and what do they do? Well, we've got 1/3 who are identifying as being in local leadership roles, whether that be political, business, or philanthropic. And the minority segments are leading the way. You've got 41% of Hispanics, 40% of Asians, 40% of Blacks, and 31% of whites telling us that they're currently engaged in local leadership roles. 61% go a step further and tell us they're interested in being engaged in future civic leadership. Guess what? It's again the Asian segments who are leading the way on this. Now, let's talk about the policies that these young adults are in favor of. When we asked them about housing policy, they were like, bring it on. Anything we can do to make it so that their paycheck can afford to pay for a house here on Long Island, they were up for it. Whether it's putting affordable housing in affluent areas, home apartments, multifamily zoning, mixed-use zoning, or even micro apartments. Have you guys seen those things? They're tiny. But guess, and it's our minority populations who are even leading the way here. The sentiment here about housing zone changing, that's what they want. Okay, now the next one. This is a little bit out there instead of housing policy. We asked them about their support for recreational marijuana. 68% are in support of legalizing recreational marijuana. And it's higher than what we see nationwide. That nationwide stat's from another YouGov poll that we just released last week. I see this one resonates. Okay. 62% see a bright future for Long Island. And again, it's the minority populations who are leading the way on this. All right, we've talked a lot about the different diversity segments here and some of the different challenges. So we're going to dive in a little bit deeper here. When we look at the population of Long Island across generations, with each generation, it's getting more diverse. What you see here on the far left is the percentage of white versus non-white for silent generation. Then we move to baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z. And you can see that gap narrowing. Well, when we talk to the young adults on Long Island, 65% of them are telling us they interact with somebody from another race or ethnicity every day. And 65% are telling us they live in a diverse neighborhood. 8 in 10 feel very positive about this growing diversity. We asked about its importance and its importance in school, and we've got the majority agreeing that yes, this is important. 68% racial and ethnic diversity is important. 77% diversity in school is important. You're probably not surprised to see this, right? Sorry, I'm like trying to see the corner of my screen here. But we've got statistics that are higher among the minority populations for diversity in school. Now, most of these people, we all know, we've already talked about the fact that they've graduated from high school here, right? Over 80% graduated from high school on Long Island. Well, most of them feel that that education prepared them for a multicultural world. And that sentiment is even stronger among Asian and Hispanic segments. All right, but now here we get a little bit like, wait, how do these things jive together? It's important, but yet, while diversity is important, people want to live near people like themselves. 70% told us they want to live near people with views like theirs, and 57% want to raise their children in a neighborhood where half or more share their race or ethnicity, with that sentiment being strongest among whites and blacks. All right, we also asked about trust in the police. 73% of young Long Islanders tell us that they trust the police. That's a stronger statistic than we see nationwide. The 65% nationwide, this is from a YouGov omnibus study that we did in November of last year, where we asked the same question, and 65% nationwide versus 73% here on Long Island. This trust is lowest among Black Long Islanders. However, it's still at 61%. And that is higher than what we see nationwide. Nationwide, it's at 50%. A little bit on transportation. The majority work close to home. We've got 74% of our working Long Islanders, they work here on Long Island, and 61% tell us they have a commute of less than 30 minutes. That's pretty good. Now, all right. Are we all comparing commuting times? Is that what's happening? So everybody on Long Island needs a car, right? The car is king. Everyone's telling us that, yes, 88% say you need a car to get around on Long Island. One of the most interesting stats on here is the 32% that could imagine using rideshare instead of having a car. That's 1/3 of our young Long Islanders telling us, maybe I'll ditch the car and I'll just call for Lyft or for Uber. We asked about public transit. Only 3 in 10 are using it every week. But 42% tell us they use the LIR regularly. Okay, now for the next section. This is about those young adults who grew up here on Long Island. They used to live here. They've now moved to the city. So who are these people? Well, we've got a really educated group here on Long Island. The group that left is even more so, 63% with a 4-year degree. And the people who left are even more likely to be involved in civic leadership. We asked them if they would come back and what might keep them from coming back. 22% said Long Island is too expensive. 10% said it's the lack of professional opportunities. Now, the fact that too expensive came out it's the top reason they told us that they wouldn't come back, but it's only at 22%. I expected that number to be a lot higher given everything else we've heard about the affordability of being here on Long Island. But we got to remember these people now live in the city where it's probably even more expensive. We asked them, right, some of the same questions we asked those who currently live here. And I think when people leave, they have a sense of nostalgia about Long Island because everything that they told us, they're higher stats than what we saw from those living here. So the future of Long Island is bright. 62% of the young adults here on Long Island, 78% of those that used to live here and now live in the city believe in the bright future of Long Island. It's the same sort of trend when we talk about Long Island being on the right track for an environmentally sustainable future. 56% of those here on Long Island, 76% of those who've left. And whether or not Long Island has enough jobs in the 21st century, 48% here versus 63% that are now living in the city. So we've covered a lot, and I'm guessing you all have questions. So do we have some that have come in?
Okay, so I just wanted to remind everybody to text the word nextLI to 63566. Before you can submit your questions, you have to text the keyword nextLI to 63566. And we're going to try to get through all your questions today. And if we don't, please visit the website to get the answers.
Sure, I'll kick it off. Terrific data, really interesting. Some things maybe we all felt we knew, but we didn't know specifically how bad maybe parts of the situation is. The question about those fearing that Long Island doesn't have either the jobs or the industry sectors that they desire in order to keep them here. Do the results go behind the scenes, and do they say what particular jobs or industries they would like to see here?
So we didn't get into a lot of those specifics, but I can tell you in the question, when we were asking about whether or not there's enough jobs here in the industries of the 21st century, we did give a couple examples, and we offered up biotech engineering, talked about alternative energy, and then technology. So when you think about where their mindset was and what they were thinking about, we sort of set the stage for them with those 3 industries.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you for submitting questions. They're coming in. So another one was just about how we conducted the survey. So how was it determined that the sample was randomly selected?
Okay, so the way this works, we at YouGov, we have an online panel. We've got over 2.5 million people around the country that are on the panel. But our sampling methodology is done such to ensure that we have a representative look of the geography that we're targeting. So we use census statistics and we set quotas to ensure that there's representation by age and gender and by race and ethnicity. Does that answer your question?
All right, Amy. 81% of the respondents said they knew someone who moved away, and 58% said it was because of the cost of living. What were the next most popular answers as to why they moved away?
All right, this is a good question. Why else did people move away? Well, professional opportunities was one. Housing was another. And then right below that, this one, I love these two. Weather. I'm not sure there's much we can do about that. And then the next one right after that was family matters. I don't know if that means that people are moving away from their families or if they're moving closer to families. You have more? I see lots of questions on the screen. There must be tons.
So Amy, any idea why 34% of Hispanics, I'm sorry, I lost the question.
Ooh.
Okay. So we're just gonna go to another one. How was it determined? Did we do that one already?
Any idea why 34% of Hispanics pay attention to public affairs most of the time? Is it because of immigration controversies?
It could be. It absolutely could be. We don't know. We didn't ask why you're paying attention or what specific areas you're paying attention to. But I think that's a pretty decent theory to talk about why Hispanics might be paying attention to what's happening in public affairs. I mean, we all see the news. We see what's happening. So that's a total plausible reason.
Millennials seem to be sending out mixed messages on race. They seem very open and even desirous of diverse relationships and experiences, yet they say they prefer to live primarily with people who look like themselves.
That's true. And it's interesting because I wish we could, have had much more time to dig into the entire diversity section of questions, especially after seeing the results come back, because I know I have questions about what does it all mean. And diversity is sometimes a tough topic. And it's a tough topic to get people's true sentiment coming out and to understand, when they're saying some of this stuff, like they want to live near people like them, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? And maybe it's a good thing to understand that there are communities here on Long Island where when they go to the supermarket, there's the foods they want, or that there's the religious organizations here for the services they want. It could be a good thing. It may not be. I think that's probably an area worthy of some additional investigation.
We are hearing that young families who are moving to the island are expecting public pre-K and that they find that their district doesn't offer it. Is work being done to increase access?
So, all right, mic is on. All right, so this is a little bit tricky. I looked at the data, and we have, 33% of Long Islanders have kids in childcare. So I don't know if that's an affordability issue or access.
And who is paying for it? Do we have that?
We don't have who's
How
paying
many
for it.
are paying for childcare?
33%. So who's paying for it? I don't know.
Yeah. That would be an interesting question because that would find out the districts where there isn't maybe universal pre-K.
Yeah.
Were any of your interviews conducted in Spanish? If not, does that skew your findings on trust in police?
The surveys were only done in English. So to the extent that people who only speak Spanish and do not speak English could be different, there's potential for differences there. However, just because someone speaks Spanish, it didn't preclude them from taking the study if they could take it in English.
We have one here. How significant is the sample size of 1805 given the 2.8 million population size?
So how does 1,805 interviews, how is it representative of the millions of people that live here on Long Island? All right, this has to do with sampling formulas, and whoever asked this question, I am more than happy to walk you through the details of it. But it has to do with, there's sample design mechanisms. And you can do a study of the entire United States with 1,000 people and have it be representative. It starts to speak to margin of error, and the more you want to slice and dice your study and the results, the more sample you need so that you have enough people to talk about and that you're not talking to only 3 people in a segment, which is why we went to 1,800, because we knew we wanted a section, given the premise, right? 1,000 people is sort of like the gold standard for a representative poll of the US. We have 1,800 interviews here because we knew we wanted to segment the results. We have 300 that were designated to be people who used to live here and now live in the city. And we set quotas within all of that to make sure we had a representative look across age and gender and race.
And keep in mind, too, it's not the total 3 million that live on Long Island. It's just 18 to 34, so there's less of those on Long Island.
So it is a rather large sample for,
It
for the
is.
population,
Yeah.
a very large sample.
Can you define Long Island and New York City in terms of these surveys? Is Long Island only Nassau and Suffolk, and New York City only Manhattan, or all the 5 boroughs?
Long Island is Nassau and Suffolk, and the city is all 5 boroughs.
If only 3 in 10 Long Islanders use public transportation, isn't that inconsistent with the spin out there that younger folks don't want to or don't like to drive?
So keep in mind, it's 3 in 10 that use public transportation at least weekly. We did have that 40%, I think it was 42%, who are using the LIR regularly. But I think where it goes right along the lines with that the younger generation doesn't necessarily want to own cars has to do with that. It's that 32% who are like, maybe I could ditch my car in exchange for ride sharing. So I think there is a match there. Whether or not you have a car on Long Island, I think some of that also has to do with the reality of getting around. So
where did you find the people who completed the survey?
the people who completed the survey, they opt in to be on the online research panels. And it's a rigorous process for people to join the panels. And there's also a rigorous process to verify, to make sure that the people we're talking to are actually who they are. It's any one of you could go and join the YouGov panel. We would encourage that. We'd have even more people to survey next time. But it's a panel process, and it's been vetted. And Pew Research actually did a study a couple years ago where it was like a research on research initiative where they looked at various online panels in terms of where do you get a probability sample and who has kind of cracked that nut for understanding what makes the most representative sample. Because years ago, you used to do random digit dialing for probability sampling in polling, and you can't do that anymore, especially when you're talking to 18 to 34-year-olds. If we were to be calling landlines, we wouldn't have a study. So we had to go online, and this is how you reach this audience.
What are the next steps for the association after starting the conversation of awareness? So, we'll take.
Yeah, I'll let you answer that.
So this is just the start. As most of you know, the Long Island Index did a lot of research and compiled a lot of data about the region. And we wanted to start with taking a pulse of this age group and seeing what there was appetite for and seeing what we want to explore further. And just based on the volume of questions coming in, everyone seems to want us to dig further into a lot of these topics. Just off the top of our head, we could do a whole separate survey on the civic leadership questions and breaking it down and asking more specific their involvement. So that's our next step. This is the start of the conversation. We want to arm people with all of this data that we just compiled and have them talk about it on next.newsday.com. The comments will be moderated, and we'll be doing daily data posts with all of these numbers over the next few weeks. Kai will be very busy. And we're going to spread it on all their social platforms and at events. And we want people to start engaging with these numbers and say, that number doesn't really make sense. It's not what I'm seeing. And then have people talk about maybe why aren't we seeing that? And maybe it's different in different pockets of Long Island. So the short answer is that this is just the start of the conversation, and we're going to keep going. And from this, we're going to figure out, based on what people are telling us, what our next research project should be, whether it's an economic forecast of a specific initiative there was appetite for, or other things. That's where we're going next.
Amy, someone's disputing our findings that there's no way 2/3 of respondents pay attention to government and public affairs. Only 20% of all people can name the county executive. Well, you know, one of the things I may say is that you may think you're paying attention to what's happening in Washington. You may be paying attention to a lot of other bigger, broader social issues. But not know who your county executives, right, Steve, Laura, right? Only 20%.
Well, I would also.
I don't think they're inconsistent, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, but.
No, and we didn't talk about what they're paying attention to, right? We asked about whether or not they're paying attention to public affairs and what's happening in government around them. And this is one of those things where, gosh, in hindsight, I wish we'd have asked 8 more questions following this. But it doesn't mean they're paying attention to everything.
So one of the questions here, it's traffic is terrible because our roads are not meant to support the level of cars on the road, which, you know, I drive to work, so there are a lot of cars and a lot of potholes. How can that be fixed? So I don't have the answer, but if you look in your booklet, you'll see that the transportation indicators, you'll see that rail ridership has went up, but at the same time, that's what, only what, 1/3 of people, it was a low number that use it daily.
Oh, for yes, you're right.
Yeah.
For daily it was low.
But annual bus ridership has dropped significantly for both the Nassau Inter-County Express and the Suffolk County Transit. Like, that's just dropped a lot from 2010 to now. So that's kind of a little bit disturbing. And when you look at, I think there are housing indicators or community indicators. We pulled walk score data about how walkable your neighborhoods are, and there's a huge disparity between Nassau and Suffolk, and generally it's just fairly low. So maybe that's why there are so many cars. That might be something that we want to pay more attention to. But yeah, I thought that was a good question.
Amy, what is the margin of error on the results?
So the margin of error, it's, I believe we calculated it's around 3%.
A lot of these questions would be best put to the county executives, the town supervisors, the village mayors. That's what's so fascinating about it. You know, if you could recommend one policy change or call to action to instill change to impact Long Island's youth, what would it be? We can't answer that here today, but that certainly is one of the questions we can put in our forum and have people commenting on that. And that's the kind of conversations that we want to get started.
And that's, again, to drive the point home, that's the point of building this digital community, is so we can all get together and try to find some of these policy answers. Because we do realize that we're offering a lot of numbers and not a lot of action items for after, and that's what the website and digital community is about, everyone coming together to figure that out. Maybe, you know, not everyone will agree, but to get people talking and thinking about this.
Do you plan to follow up a follow-up survey with this demographic, expanding on some of these questions asked today? Great question. What we can do, because of the nature of this research and the panels, is we can go back to all of these 1,800 people with another specific set of questions to incorporate what you're telling us, what may find out online, and go back and let's drill down on the diversity, let's drill down on the housing costs, and see what we get. So this is, that's the beauty of doing this, and we do plan to do that. We also are planning to do some focus groups with the people who have responded to the survey. And we may even tape them and put them online so people can then start another conversation as people watch and listen to that and say, well, I don't agree with that, or I do agree with that, and keep the conversation going. So, you know, 1,800 voices are a lot, but that's certainly not enough and not representative of how people respond and how they react to this data and what they want to do about it. And that's where we're going to go forward with that. Another one is the data available for stakeholders to drill down on specific particular interests. Yes, we do. We have a lot of numbers. Kai just spends most of his waking hours crunching it. And there's so much more data than we even presented here in the booklet or in the slideshow. So we do We welcome invitations from institutions to come and present data. If you have a specific slice of it you want it crunched and narrowed down, talk with us, respond to us. We will help you do that because this is all part of a public policy initiative to start conversations. So yes, we will help you with the data and send us the questions. And we have another one like that, providing this to the towns and municipalities. Yes, let us know what it is you want. We'll work on it. We'll put it on the site too for everyone else. But you know, if you have some specifics, send them to us because that might inform the questions we go back to and ask this panel on the second round.
And if you actually go to next.newsday.com right now, the booklet is available as well as all those indicators we keep mentioning about the national trends as they relate to Long Island and New York. And also in your booklets, we actually spoke to a lot of people in this age group and asked them to write about their first-person experiences with some of the topics that we asked questions about. And those essays are also available online. And they're interesting reads about the real impact of student loans on your day-to-day life and trying to raise a young family on Long Island and desperately wanting to stay here, but you know the struggle to really afford it. So those, we encourage you to go on the site. It went up this morning, so you'll be able to share it very easily.
So there's one more question here. Were those that left Long Island asked if they plan to return, particularly as they make major decisions such as buying a house, having children? If not asked directly, could analysts draw possible answers? So we did ask them what prevents them from returning. The highest is 22% going too expensive. 10% said lack of professional opportunities. 10% said friends no longer live there. I thought it was funny that 5% said they don't want to own a car, so that prevented them from coming back. So too expensive, that's 22% compared to the second one, which is at 10, so that's a big factor there.
Another one, what was the ethnic and racial makeup of the survey respondents?
Oh, what a great question.
You need a booklet.
I think I have that here. So 61% white, 17% Hispanic, 11% black, 8% Asian, 2% mixed race, 1% Native American.
Which is pretty much the makeup of Long Island.
Yeah, well, we weighted it.
They were weighted to match the demographics.
Amy, did we ask about medical use versus recreational use?
We did not. No. No, we stuck to recreational.
And now we have a question about the advisory board. Are there any millennials on the advisory board? Could you consider forming an advisory board of millennials to help drive the conversation about what we want?
Yes, absolutely. We're hoping this process, we might ask some of our panelists, the 1,800, again, we can go back and have a conversation with them, if any of them would be willing to step up and be on our advisory board. The other thing is we're hoping as people come to the website and post and want to be part of the conversation, we can identify people that none of us in this room even know who have a lot to contribute. So that is really one of our top goals, is to now find a group of people representative of the sample to guide us as we go forward with this.
Again, a lot of the questions we're getting are a little similar, but someone wrote, I believe this data is great and meaningful, but how will it be used to start making initiatives to change the future of Long Island for individuals within the age group of 18 to 34? So we share that exact same frustration, but we do think that it was important to do this first, so we had this snapshot that people could then be working with real data and real numbers and not anecdotes and just numbers that don't have much credibility to them. So again, we just feel the data will start this conversation to make these initiatives. And we think this can be in person too. We right now we wanted to get that website up and running and the ability to live stream things and for people to comment on the site, but we would like to do in-person events as well, focus groups. There's really a lot of possibilities in the direction this could go, but we want it to come from the community. We don't want such a top-down approach that we're dictating how these initiatives can be formed. So please contact us through the website and nextLI@newsday.com. Any ideas you have for us, we are open to everything.
One of the questions is, will this presentation be available online? And yes, it will. So I don't know how long it'll take us to get up there, but certainly as soon as possible, we will do that.
I think I just did that.
That's on your
Who and how do you contact to join the advisory board? So our email is on the back of the booklet, but nextli@newsday.com, and we'll start a conversation about getting involved.
Amy, any noticeable trends about along gender lines? Do men lead? Do they crunch the data that way? And people
We didn't look at gender gaps. We spent a lot of time looking at ethnic and racial gaps and income gaps and any educational level gaps. We didn't really get into gender. It would be an interesting way to look at it.
I wonder if we could recut it and find that answer.
Yeah.
Sounds like Kai has a.
So
assignment.
it's about the same. Well, would they leave if they could? 51% of females said they would. 49 males. So it's close. There's no real difference there.
Did the panel learn anything from the study that was a surprise? Results seemed to meet my expectations. We were very surprised by the housing, that universal support for the different housing types. Just a little about, I just turned 30, all my friends are starting to buy houses, and it seems like a lot of people I went to high school with are buying into that single family home. That's the only option. They're going right along the path. But the survey really shows there's a lot of appetite for changing the type of housing stock that's available here. And it's just contrary to what you see at a lot of the local board meetings and things like that about not wanting these different types of housing arrangements. But I mean, in some groups, it's over 75% that support it. So we were really, we were surprised by that.
And because it's an online survey, when we asked the housing questions, we could provide pictures of what these options look like: an accessory apartment, a micro housing. So they knew exactly what they were looking at, and would they live there, and do they want that? And the results were kind of overwhelming for every option. It's basically saying, find me a place to live that I could actually afford. So I think that the intensity, that was probably one of the biggest surprises. And I guess as well of how much they love Long Island. You know, we feel that way probably, but to see them overwhelmingly say, yes, I'm happy to be here, I'm glad I was raised here, I want to stay here. It's nice to see that number kind of come back at you.
Right. Hey, Rita, tap it into their support for multifamily housing and tapping into their interest in public affairs. They all seem like prime candidates to join sort of, remember when we created the Right Track Coalition to build support for the third track, and the success we had was because we had hundreds of bodies who would go down to the public hearings in support, because typically only the people who are in opposition come out and to oppose a project. And it seems like the survey pool, yeah, right.
But you know, if there is a certain project or housing, I mean, obviously the hub is one of the biggest ones that's out there, but there are a lot of projects out there on the boards. We create a forum just about that, just about housing, just about this particular proposal. We add more data and more detail and let people talk about it.
Right.
And there will be there's a hearing, there's this, and we'll see if this generation, you know, puts its feet where its mouth is and actually gets out there and does something about it. That in a certain time of the day, a certain point, if you really want this and you're interested in government, you're interested in affairs, and you want to stay here, you're going to have to tell your elected officials that this is what you want.
Right.
So we can just provide the tools. It's up to them to do what they want to do with it.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
Did you ask married versus single? I would not have been able to move out of my parents' house without a spouse to split the bills. Do single people leave?
So there could be a lot of reasons to this, but single people, would they leave if they could? 59%. And married people, 27%. So there's a huge difference there. But that could mean a lot of things. That could be, you already established a home here. Like, I don't know what you would pull from that, but there is a difference there. And also people who will never leave. Single is also 64% will never leave. So go figure.
Yeah. Any data on political party affiliation? No, we did not ask that. We did not ask whether they were registered at the party or whether the last time they voted or anything like that. That wasn't the data we were looking for at this point.
Any geographic breakdowns of significance? Do those further east or west have different views? And yes, we knew where everyone lived, whether it was Nassau or Suffolk. And if you look in the booklet, when it's significant, we mention when something stood out with Nassau residents versus Suffolk residents. And also in the next few weeks in our daily data post, we will be identifying those things. It was very interesting. There was a difference on several topics.
We have a breakdown on that?
We have it there. The statement of it's too expensive was the main reason for youth not returning, although New York City is more expensive. Ultimately, it appears that this boils down to a real or perceived cost-benefit ratio. What benefits could LI promote to increase this ratio? So, again, this would be on the site. We would ask for essays about this. We would we could put this up as a data post with some of the data points and have people comment their ideas. So look for that in the next few weeks.
Did you have a breakdown on sexual orientation?
We asked that question. I'm not sure if we asked that question.
Would it be in the panel data that we could?
We have that among that information. It's one of the variables we capture at YouGov that we have on our panelists. I don't know that we put it in this study.
So there's a few questions about how we came up with the survey questions. And this is actually, we would like to thank all our Newsday colleagues for help with this. The researchers at YouGov did not come up with these questions. We looked at every question that the Long Island Index has asked in the past. We identified which ones were relevant today still, but those were among all age groups. So we looked at the ones that would make more sense to ask this age group. And then we really crowdsourced. We had several meetings. We invited this age group who work at Newsday to come help us design the questions and actually test the survey. And we asked a lot of people who work every day in data about, and telling stories about Long Island to what was on their minds about what they wanted to know. So this was really with the help of all of Newsday. And we think we came up with a really solid question set. It's very hard because it was breadth versus depth, and we had so many topics we wanted to ask about, but the more topics you ask about, the less deep you could get, and as we're seeing in some of these questions, you wanted us to get a little deeper on some topics, but to keep to the 10 minutes, we had to cut some of those questions. So, but it was a great learning experience for the next time we take a survey like this.
Last question. Are there differences in attitudes between North and South Shore? So we did look at Nassau and Suffolk. We did not look for North and South. A really interesting question, and I wonder that's something we can start to explore. But it's a fun idea of how much we don't know and how much we would love to know about our island. So we're going to keep at this, and we are open, and we're to all of us, everyone here, helping inform how we go forward, because as the Roush Foundation started, good data can derive good policy. We're also adding the component of the actionable part of our website, and so the more data we can collect that's valuable to this conversation, that's what we want to do. So please keep the questions coming. You know the email address. They're placed on the website, and we will keep this conversation going.
Let's give Rita Chioli a nice round of applause. Rita, thanks so much, you and your team. It shows you did a tremendous amount of work, a great job, very informative. And why they decided to do something like release the results at an event like this, because it's really the business and the political leaders who need to understand what the emerging generation wants and desires, because they are the next generation and they are the next Long Island. And that's why it's critical for us to know. And so really I want to thank Pat, Debbie, the whole Newsday team, and Rita. One more round of applause for them. Last items. Tiger Woods is coming to town next week. It's great for Long Island. It puts Long Island on the map. If you're a mother, a grandmother, a stepmother, or a godmother, we wish you all a very happy Mother's Day. Thank you very much.